Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where every day I share human stories of how technology is reshaping or transforming our lives, work, industry, and indeed world. Now, as an ex-IT guy, I remember the dark times where IT was seen as business blockers rather than business enablers, because it always seemed to take over 12 months to deliver a project that typically came over the line, over budget, and late. But thankfully, those days are disappearing because businesses are now challenged with hitting the ground running and bouncing back in a post-pandemic world. There is no time to spend recruiting the perfect person and then waiting for them to work their 3-month notice period, then a further few weeks of onboarding, because businesses need to flex as and when required to secure that extra talent that they need so they can deliver projects quickly and also stay lean and flexible throughout their entire transformational journey. Now, I recently came across a new platform called Gurus Direct. It's essentially a platform that connects businesses directly with on-demand experts, offering services in niche areas of IT that have the biggest skill shortage and highest demand. So today, I want to explore how they're doing all that and also discuss how the RPA market has changed and will continue to change going forwards. And we're also going to talk about the biggest challenges and potential solutions, all washed down with 3 great origin stories too. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to the UK so you can join me, Steve, Peter and Mandy from Gurus Direct. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
So, hi, Neil. My name is Steve Brooks, and I'm the founder of RPA Gurus, and really happy to be here today, and thank you for the opportunity.
I'm Mandy Downham. I've been in technology a very long time, and delighted to be part of RPA Gurus. I think it's a really exciting platform. I've been in technology a long time, and I've been in the advantage position of being in the early stages of things like CRM, then RPA, and now I see this as a new, exciting twist on technology. So, just really excited. So my specialism is alliances, dealing with like very large systems integrators, partnerships, talking about strategy and just connecting the right people together.
Yeah, morning, Neil. I'm Peter Walker. So I recently retired as CTO EMEA for Blue Prism, an RPA company, to pursue some of my own interests in property and other things like that. And for context, we all know each other from Blue Prism. So it's like we're getting the old club back together and reliving some of those glory days. And my story is quite a unique one. I joined Blue Prism straight out of university, took a very casual summer job and just never left. So it was a 16-year internship that went very well for me, very well for the company. And that was a great story. I was employee number 8. And when I left, there were over 1,000 people in 40 different countries or something daft. And I met and became friends with these guys along the way. So we have a lot of stories to tell. And I was concentrating on property, but the minute I'd left Blue Prism, the phone started ringing. And Steve was one of those people. And he had something captivating to share and going on. So, that's how I got involved with Gurus Direct.
Fantastic. What a big warm welcome to all of you. But I love this story now. It's almost like the Blues Brothers and getting the band back together. And I suppose, Steve, we should
You
start
haven't heard Steve play the guitar. I quit that metaphor straight off.
Well, but Steve, before we get you on the guitar there, I've got to ask, can you share your origin story as the founder? So where did your passion for tech come from? And ultimately, what put you on the path that you're on today?
Wow. Well, I've been in the technology space my whole career, which 25 years I've been in the space, with the last 10 years being in automation. And automation is one of those things that just keeps growing and getting bigger and bigger and more important and a more sort of ubiquitous part of all of our lives. So I've had the good fortune of working at 3 different automation companies. The first one is called NICE. They really focus in on what's known as attended automation in the contact center. I then moved to Blue Prism, who were pretty much the founders of RPA. I mean, it was Blue Prism that coined the phrase RPA. They were at the forefront of a lot of really important advances in the technology, especially around security and scalability, which Peter had a lot to do with. Then I went to a company called Worksoft, which did continuous automation, which includes pre-production, test automation, and automation in a production environment. So I've been really lucky. I've been exposed to sort of the holistic view of automation. But the big thing that companies struggle with is you always need 3 things to do any IT project, regardless of what niche that it's in. You need to have 3 things in place, and that's people, process, and technology. And the technology itself became, really, really robust over time. The processes and the best practices to get it in place became defined. The sort of the weak link of the 3 was the people. And so the idea behind Gurus Direct was to build a workforce on demand, so that a CIO or a CEO or a CTO or a head of HR could essentially scale up and scale down with resources on demand and pay for them by the hour, by the day, by the week, or even by the process. And so that's why we developed the platform, was to provide access to certified resources with very niche IT talent, so that companies could have this extra resource on demand and overcome that single biggest challenge.
And I think all 3 of you have got a fantastic history with RPA here, plus with your work at Blue Prism, of course. But a question I'll ask all 3 of you, I'll ask this to you first, Steve. Here in 2021, how have you seen the RPA market change over the years?
It's a great question. I think there's been 3 big areas that sort of all end in TION: commoditization, democratization, and consolidation. And so what I mean by that with commoditization, first of all, there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions going on. Microsoft acquired a company called Softmotive. Salesforce really recently, in fact, they just announced it last week, have just acquired a company called Service Trace out of Germany. And so the software itself is somewhat becoming commoditized. It's becoming, it's already come over the curve of the hype, Gartner hype curve. And now it's just becoming, a regular part of everybody's, daily life. So there's a lot of commoditization going on. Secondly, there's a lot of democratization, in that it's now cloud-based and it's a sort of a pay-as-you-go model. So when Peter and Mandy and I started at Blue Prism, you had to buy a certain amount of robots over a certain amount of time. You had to be prepared to make that minimum commitment. But now you can just, have it pay as you go. Or you can eat as much as you eat, when you want it, how you want it. It's very much more accessible now. Lastly, consolidation. I mean, all of these technologies are starting to become interconnected. One of the biggest players in the space, UiPath, came up with a phrase, hyperautomation, which is all about connecting all of the different parts of automation into a single platform that can do everything from intelligent document processing to test automation to automation in production to artificial intelligence, machine learning. And once you start to connect all these different pieces, it starts to become something much bigger that people are now calling hyperautomation. Peter, would you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I'm going to add some colour to what you talked about with this commoditization piece, right? And this is a classic business lesson, right? You get complementary businesses and each one wants to commoditize the other one. A simple example would be if you're running restaurants, you want to commoditize the availability of babysitting services. And if you're a babysitter, you'd love there to be very few babysitters about, but lots of restaurants, and you commoditize your complementary aspect. And this is a classic in IT, right? You have the products and the vendors, which they like to be scarce and unique and prized, and they love to have a commoditized pool of labor. And what I can see is that, in the early days of RPA, what companies like Blue Prism and UiPath and others did reasonably well was create scaled training programs. In some cases, these were given away for free. It was all about training up hundreds of people in different locations so that they could commoditize the labor pool and the software would be prized. Now, what I see happening very rapidly now is that's being flipped around. Microsoft have entered the space. Steve, you talked about the commoditization of the software. I think there's price pressure across the industry. And actually, because people have been going at this a while and have been struggling with it, what they're discovering is finding the right people and great people to run these projects, where we have to be honest, the world is still figuring out how to do RPA in the most optimal way. Those tables are just sort of turning a little bit, which is why I think this is quite a timely moment for Gurus Direct. So the metaphor I leave people with, I don't know if you know the Winnie the Pooh story. He gets swept away on his honeypot in a river. And the narrative is very poetic. I can't remember what it says. I apologize. But from a distance, you could never quite tell if Winnie the Pooh was on top of the pot or if the pot was on top of Winnie the Pooh. And they were sort of rolling their way down the stream. And I just think we're at that inflection point right now.
Love that. And Mandy, from your perspective, is there anything that you could add to that on the kind of changes that you've seen?
Yes, absolutely. So when I joined Blue Prism, it was after Peter. Nobody's got Peter's history with Blue Prism, but when I joined it, it was still a very small British-based software company, and I was the first woman in RPA from a sales perspective, and I was really excited about it. And I was given the challenge to take on Accenture, which I've had lots of history with, and I was thinking, how are they going to react to dealing with robots, this new technology, this new paradigm that was joining. But what was the most exciting thing for me was that when I started out in the Nordics because they had some banks interested, and within a very short space of time, the excitement level within a company like Accenture and Avanade was phenomenal, and the acceptance of robots became fantastic. And within a space of 12 months, Accenture represented 55% of Blue Prism's business. And what was exciting was I was dealing with some very young people at Accenture. A lot of them were training and certifying and very proud of their certifications. And it was that excitement about what robotics had to offer. And they taught me that the sky was the limit. So when you get these young brains and these smart people and these skills and these certifications together, there's all sorts of things that can happen. And then during my time, I also moved on to look after Microsoft, which then took it to a whole new level. So robots at first were like, oh, how are we going to use them? Let's automate invoicing. Let's do some quite boring stuff. But within a very short space of time, with these smart people, with their certifications, their knowledge, their understanding, and their excitement, we were able to start seeing how AI would come into place, how machine learning would come into place. So robots became a de facto standard to enable all these things. And we used to talk about the robots being like the body, and then all these other skills and opportunities with like the arms and legs, and then you've got the head potentially representing AI and some of the clever things going on. And then since my days at Blue Prism, I've also worked at Automation Anywhere, and I've seen the same type of excitement and the same type of knowledge. So I agree that there's so many challenges and changes going on in the marketplace, and there's no longer the need. People aren't just a Blue Prism house anymore. They're no longer just an UiPath house. They're no longer one particular brand, but they're now using best of breed for what they want. So the thing I'm seeing is the fact that people need to be multi-skilled. It's no longer good enough to just have my Azure accreditation and Blue Prism. These very clever people at Accenture and Microsoft want multiple skills. And that, for me, is one of the most exciting things that this platform has to offer, because you can search for the skills you specifically need. So if you want somebody who speaks Spanish, who does 2 or 3 RPA packages, and maybe even has some cloud skills, you can find that. And that's really turning business on its head. It's really giving an opportunity for the brightest, smartest, skilled gurus in the marketplace to demand and deserve the best going rates and the best flexibility for their work. So they no longer have to join a company, train up for weeks and weeks on end to get hold of the whole business culture and, go through the boot camps to start. But they can actually turn up for an hour, a day, a week, a month, however long that project and their skills are desired for. And they can demand top dollar for their skills and get really appreciated for it. And, since COVID's happened, so much has changed around the world. So it's no longer an unusual thought to work from home or to be available on different timescales and not to be just sat at a desk, 9 to 5 tied to one company. So I just think the marketplace is going to explode once these skilled gurus realize their earning potential and their flexibility, and they can choose the projects they want to work on, it's an amazing thing. You're no longer a consultant that's going to work 6 weeks away, in Texas or whatever, stuck in a little dingy office. You can do the hours, the weeks, the days where you want and how you want, and still keep building your skills. So I think we're going to see the smartest, brightest people on the planet just wanting to be the best gurus.
That's a fantastic point. And I think businesses all over the world now can no longer afford to wait a year to 18 months to deliver that project over the line, get somebody through the onboarding process and make sure they're the right fit and have the right skills. They just want to hit the ground running and get that project out there. So what you're doing here is fantastic. And I suspect the 3 of you are all talking to very different sets of people, both internally and externally. So a question I've got to ask, from all those conversations that you're having, are there any trends in the kind of challenges that you're seeing and the kind of things that people are asking for your help with? And Mandy, I'll let you go with that first.
So I'm having some exciting conversations. I haven't come across anybody that's not interested. Yeah. So my specialism is systems integrators, but with our platform, to start with, we've got to look at different areas. You can't just go to the big systems integrators. So I'm talking to lots of people like training partners, accreditation personnel, the small niche specialist implementation teams that have built their practices and their businesses around the RPA marketplace, because Gurus offers a huge umbrella of opportunities. But what we're trying to do is focus on RPA first, then rapidly build out to other niches. And the thing I'm struggling with is to hold back people's excitement about the other niches, because they're very proud of their skills and their people's skills. The other thing I'm finding is that the partners that I'm talking to are really excited because it's a free marketing tool to showcase their offerings, their services, and what kind of projects they can do. So all I can say is there isn't enough hours in the day to cope with the excitement value. It's just really making sure we get to a lot of this talent that don't know about us. That's the challenge. Is it's not enough hours in the day, not enough time to talk to everyone. But it's a definitely watch this space. It's an explosion just about to happen.
Great problems to have. And Peter, from the conversations you've been having, are there any trends that you're picking up on?
Yeah, completely. Further to Mandy's point, I've yet to meet somebody who says, I'm not sure I get this idea, or I don't see value in it. So the questions are usually how questions. And having worked in RPA for a long time and got the contacts there, the big problem was always differentiating good versus great when it comes to people's talents, because lots of people can talk a good talk and they've done a few projects and so on and so forth. But the big challenge as well, being slightly cynical, is there's that old aphorism that every buyer gets the supplier that they deserve, meaning if you're not a very informed buyer, you're not going to ask the right questions and you'll probably end up with something rubbish. And that just applies across all industries and all forms of procurement, right? So people are usually interested in, how can I monitor somebody's reputation or know what I'm buying? Because an online directory and all you've got is a little photo and somebody's name. How do I even know anything about them? It could be a scam for all I know. Are they going to turn up to my projects, or will they steal my data? So people are really interested in the things that we're doing to vet people, check their accreditation, identify who they are and where they are, control that commercial transaction in terms of quality. So, somebody's not going to get paid unless the job is done, ratings and feedback and social elements. And once we start sharing all this stuff, people's passion, it's just infectious. They start talking like they're part of the company, yet they're just a prospective buyer or a prospective seller of services. So there's a lot of enthusiasm out there. And it's almost sort of putting the pressure on us, really, to gather that momentum and make things happen more and more quickly.
Fantastic. And Steve, you've got the luxury of speaking to people at every level of the business internally and also having a lot of conversations with clients. Is there anything that you'd like to share on that?
Yeah, there's so much going on. I think Mandy is right in the sense that, people are not only interested in working remotely now, but they're getting trained remotely. And so what we're seeing is a lot of alignment with these training organizations so that we're filling up our funnel of certified skilled resources that are new. We're not just moving talent around in the ecosystem, we're actually introducing new talent to meet the demand. Another trend that we're seeing a lot now is companies are very interested in meeting quotas of diversity and inclusion and things like that. So that's another element that we have baked into our platform that allows companies the ability to recruit certain types of people to meet their demands.
Fantastic. So I think this is a perfect opportunity to introduce people listening to Gurus Direct. Of course, you aim to help businesses hire only the talent that they need when needed and stay lean, flexible as they grow on that digital transformation journey. But can you tell me more about how you do that, the problems you solve, and ultimately what makes you different from other solutions out there?
These online marketplaces have been around for a while. We haven't invented a new business model. What we've taken is a business model that was tried and tested, and that we've tried to introduce enough unique selling points to it to make it interesting. These online platforms were already a good idea before COVID came along, but like Mandy said, they're now much more relevant. So what we've tried to do to differentiate ourselves is, first and foremost, is that niche focus. So instead of trying to be all things to all people and offering, a butcher, a baker, and a candlestick maker, and all that, every possible type of skill set in one platform, we've gone for that, an inch wide and a mile deep focus, starting with automation, because that's where our expertise lies. The great thing about automation is that it's like a fabric into every other area of IT, because all other areas of IT are now using automation in harmony, coexisting with what they do to, increase the throughput of things like CRM, ERP, any other type of technology can be combined with automation to accelerate it. So that's really, really exciting. Another thing that we've done to differentiate ourselves is that we've aligned very closely with the brands. So, within RPA, for example, we're very closely aligned with the big three. We've now starting to get interest from Microsoft and even a provider in the Far East. And there's so much more to go after, but there's that's more than enough to deal with to begin with. On that note, we have tried to remain vendor agnostic as well, because people want to be able to select talent based on a number of different criteria. They might reverse engineer into choosing their vendor based on someone that's got the right industry expertise or departmental expertise or second language expertise or diversity characteristics that they're looking for. And so we allow for that as well. Another thing that we've introduced is micro contracts. So instead of just introducing two parties, one with skills, one party looking for people with those skills to do a piece of work, we've introduced micro contracts. So in the spirit of what you're seeing in telehealth in the US, where people no longer want to go to the doctor, but they're willing to pay to speak to a doctor over a call like this, over a Zoom call. You might just want to speak with someone with expertise. And so we've introduced, those hour-long micro contracts where you can pay to speak to someone by the hour. We're also working closely with recruitment companies. Recruiters use ATS, applicant tracking systems. So we're building APIs to connect to those so that we can partner with traditional recruitment companies and help fill their funnels with talent. And yeah, I would say those are the main things that we're focusing on to differentiate.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in there, if you don't mind, Neil, just to sort of talk about how I think this set of tools and the new approach is actually going to change the way that IT projects get done. It's not just about matching names to buyers or whatever. So, Steve mentioned micro contracts there, and I think this is a really big deal. If you just want a 1 hour consultation call with somebody who's an expert in RPA project management, or you've put a new team together, you're proud of the team, they've done a good job, the project's gone great, but actually you just want a third party to come and do a bit of an assessment and a review of the quality of their output for 3 or 4 hours. Traditionally, some of that would have been hard to do, or, you wouldn't have bothered, or it would be difficult to fund because, you're hiring somebody for less than a day. Or let's say you're planning to your next project. You want some advice. You're good at automation. You've got your RPA capability established, but you've never done anything using artificial intelligence or OCR. Can I just get some guidance from somebody who's done that, who can give me some pointers for my next project? Just one more example, talking about projects being done differently. RPA is often a very tactical go-to tool when there's an emergency, there's a fire burning, and we've got to just get something done, and the deadline is measured in days. It could be a regulatory issue, something that's gone wrong, some kind of remediation, mass refunds to customers. I've seen this in many guises in many industries, and it tends to be the regulated industries that have to panic more quickly. Well, what if you were to hire a guy in Australia, a consultant in India, perhaps, or in Western Europe, and another consultant in the US? They could hand over to each other round the clock. Whereas traditionally, you'd just be using your own staff or your own consultant in one time zone, and your progress would be as a third as quick. So I think with that, assembling multidisciplinary teams, we have the concept of virtual teams. It's going to be more and more interesting the way people flexibly assemble the skills and the talent they need at the time that they need it. And that was going to change the way projects are going to be run ultimately.
And we could have people listening in 165 countries at the moment, all faced with a variety of challenges. So let's say there's somebody out there looking for an automation expert, and they've got they need a particular set of skills. So I don't want to sound too much like Liam Neeson there, but how would they do that? Where would they start? And if you just walk me through how they would get started with Gurus Direct.
Yeah, so I have a go-to example I use. Let's say you're a multinational company and you're trying to find somebody with a particular set of skills. So you're trying to automate something in procurement. So you need somebody with subject matter expertise in procurement processes and terminology. You've outsourced your procurement processes to Brazil. So you need somebody who's a Portuguese speaker. They need to be in a time zone that they can access Brazil. But actually, your infrastructure is run out of India. So you'd like that time zone to overlap with India. So you're probably looking for somebody in Western Europe now. And they need to be certified in your tool of choice, be that Blue Prism, UiPath, or something else. So really, you're looking for the overlap of all of these things. And in the old world, that would have been just impossible to find, right? You'd have had to make a compromise on some level, be it the language, be it the certification or whatever. So we've got a very powerful platform that allows you to search and filter down in that way.
It's a great example, really brings it to life. And Mandy, what would you say the benefits are for consultants, for the consultant listening out there?
Well, because they're able to work on the projects that they want to, because they've got full rights and accessibility and what they're agreeing to. They can use the skills that they want to. They can work the hours they want to, and they can politely request the money that they'd like, that their skills actually deserve for them. Because not only can you don't have to have the most super advanced certification. You could be an intermediate person climbing your way up, building your referenceability. And the platform allows you to choose the type of person, the type of skill set, and the type of combination that you want. So for the consultant, it can be a really good learning curve. They're actually also able to see what skills are being demanded out there. So it might even encourage them to go down a certain area of the business to build up certain specific skills that make them even more marketable. So it's kind of like a learning tree on both sides of the business.
And again, I suspect that the three of you are having very different conversations with different sets of people. And Mandy, I'll start with you. But what kind of feedback have you received from people either providing or looking for talent? Do you get to hear those feedback stories?
You know, as I said to you, I've worked many, many years with systems integrators, and they have some real specialist skills in there, like, say, strategy teams. But in order to engage with a systems integrator, you've got to go through a whole vetting process, and then you sign up agreements, and it's this whole, careful, what are we signing up to, how many hours, how many weeks, whatever. But now with the way that this platform's set up, if you want somebody to do strategy for you for 3 or 4 hours, you can absolutely get it. And that's what's causing the excitement, is that people are being able to access skills and access gurus at a speed and flexibility that they've never considered before. And they're just excited about it. They want to get their hands on it. So our challenge is to get as many gurus and as much skills on our platform, so that the whole matching process can have making it sound like a dating site, but it maybe that's the way we view it, as a dating site for the right gurus, the right projects, and the right career paths.
A career secondary revenue stream, right? An actual dating site.
Exactly. There you go. Well, that's the platform. It can do all sorts. But yeah, goodness, how did we get there?
And Peter, do you get to hear any stories like that?
Definitely. So what's been really interesting for me has been talking to the consulting companies, because I started off thinking this is going to be tough, contentious. We're eating their lunch. But actually, what I've learned, if we think about the big guys, the big systems integrators, they know they operate in a highly sort of competitive market, and they're not afraid of new competition arriving, or competition arriving, being organized in a different form. They pride themselves on their brand and the prestige and the multidisciplinary approach that they take, and the quality assurance, which we can't necessarily provide. But what's really interesting is that there's a number of propositions that the consulting firms really buy into at every level. So any firm from time to time has people on the bench, and the idea of being able to utilize those people on casual projects or more formally committed ones is really attractive to them. So right from the big consulting firms right down to the small ones, they're all really, really interested in a bench clearing service and using Gurus Direct for that. But that's just the simple level. The really interesting bit is the ways in which it's going to enable some consulting firms to broaden their reach and do different things. So I've spoken to people at the micro level, where literally it might be fewer than 10 people in a single company. And, the idea that they can augment their skills and resource base by subcontracting, in effect, to somebody that they find on Gurus Direct, but maybe go and bid for that slightly higher level of project that they otherwise would have been scared to do because of that resourcing risk. Or on a related note, there's a specific Finnish company I've been speaking to who have, a few people dotted around, and they've got the right skills and the right language reach, say, to do projects in Eastern Europe. But again, in that location, in that skill, in that niche, they can't bid for certain project sizes because they can't ramp up quickly enough. But they were very excited about the idea that they could use their employed staff as project managers and for quality control to select the right people and lead and govern those projects whilst, the sort of legwork is done through outsourced individuals. So it's been really, really interesting for them, as well as other things like, if they're offering advice by the hour on the platform, that becomes a lead generation device, right? Because they get to hear about what projects are being planned, what challenges people are having in the market, and so on and so forth. So that's the big surprise for me is the consulting firms are on board. They're very excited about this. They want to partner with us. I really thought they were going to see us as the competition.
And Steve is the guy that had that vision to go out there and solve these very real challenges for businesses. You assembled the perfect team around you. And is there any stories that you hear that just assure you that you made the right decision, you're on the right path, and fuel you to make you want to take it to the next level?
Thanks for saying that. And I absolutely have surrounded myself with the best colleagues I've ever worked with. So as far as having a great team is concerned, I'm confident that I've got the best possible team. What the key to this is flexibility, right? On the talent side, some people want to work by the hour, some people want to work by the day, some people want to charge by the process. So that's what we tried to do. We tried to give them those options, and we have done that. And so it's very flexible. It allows people to work in the new normal, how they want to work. On the customer side, the technology curve is growing exponentially, and the skills gap is only going to get bigger and bigger. I mean, technology is growing faster than the skilled resources can keep up with, and it's only going to become an increasing challenge as we go forwards. What companies or organizations with some skilled resources like about the platform is that this essentially automates new customer acquisition for them. So, the irony is that they're in the automation space, but we've created a platform that now automates new customer acquisition for them, because by signing up and getting their skilled resources on the platform, new customers will literally find and invite them to new projects, which they absolutely love. And then the last piece, just to reiterate something that Peter said, and it's really important that you get the validation of the talent absolutely right, because people are going to start becoming more and more used to working with people they've never met, complete strangers, for lack of a better word, and they need to be confident and have the confidence that the person at the other end of the platform has those skills. So there's two levels of insurance baked in. The first one is the validation certificates. So we're working with organizations that actually use blockchain technology to validate the certificates, and each certificate has an individual digital signature that you can verify against the manufacturer's database if you want to. But we take that out of the customer's hands, and we do that for you. We validate the talent.
I think everyone's been on such a journey over the last 12 months and beyond. We quickly went to working from home at scale, and then we've had people employed, they've been interviewed, recruited, onboarded, all without meeting their team colleagues. Now we're going to hybrid working, and it just feels that the market is continuously evolving, and everyone's going to have to continuously adapt to that. And I appreciate you probably can't share too much right here, right now, but is there anything else you can share about where you go from here, Steve, and the plans for the future at Gurus Direct?
Absolutely. One more thing I'd just like to add is that, these systems have that self-policing mechanism baked in. This is nothing new. It's been around for a long, long time, similar to what TripAdvisor does with hotels or what Checkatrade does with tradesmen. And that is that people get to write comments, they get to write reviews and, give feedback on how it was to work with any one of these individuals. So that, in combination with their certificates, is what gives people the peace of mind that they're working with the right individuals.
Love that. And You've all been very kind to spend your time with me today and share your very personal origin stories, how you got where you are. But now I'm going to have a little bit of fun with you and ask you to share your soundtrack to those origin stories. Is there a particular song or piece of music that has inspired you or accompanied you throughout your career? Helps you get your head in the zone before going in a meeting or maybe going on stage for something. And Peter, seeing as you have a guitar behind you, I'm going to go with you first.
Yeah. It's a classical guitar, I'm afraid. I might bore you to tears with the stuff I play, but no, I'll give you two answers. One's a cliche and one's a more facetious answer. So my mood inducer going on stage would be Eye of the Tiger. I'm sure you've got that on your playlist already. But my facetious answer, given where we are and what we're doing, and we're not under any illusions here. We have grand visions for the platform. We are a startup. It's with its risks. We know that most startups fail in a given period, but we're having fun, right? So we're going to give this a big shot and see where we get to. But my facetious contribution is like a bat out of hell will be gone by the morning comes.
Absolutely love that. Both choices. So, Mandy, the pressure's on. Is there anything that means anything to you?
Oh, my goodness me. I didn't know Peter was going to do a twosie. Okay. So mine is, it's one of those sort of fills me with great pride songs, and it's Flying Without Wings. And it's not because of the romantic nature of it, but it just summarizes to me with some of the leading technologies I've had the joy and privilege to work with and some of the partners that I've managed. You genuinely can fly without wings. There is no end to possibilities if you put the right people, the right skills together with the right businesses. And I've worked with some of the most outstanding partners in the past, and I will continue to do so. And I genuinely feel I fly, and I certainly don't have wings, but I feel those warm zephyrs drive me higher and higher.
That's a beautiful choice. I love the story and the reason behind that. And Steve, for the guy that's made all this possible and built this, what song has been the soundtrack for you?
Let's go with Come Together by the Beatles, shall we? Because that's what the platform is all about. It's about making it easy for different types of people, regardless of what your background is, what you're looking for, where you're based in the world, how you want to work, and bringing such a wonderful team all together. So I'm going to go with that song as the theme song for the business.
Oh, man, all three of you have battered those out of the park. Perfect choices.
I'm just singing the lyrics in my head there. I'm looking at Steve and his picture and his short crop, right? Isn't there a line in that song that goes, he's got hair down to his knees?
Oh, man. And for anyone that would like to find information about Gurus Direct, contact you guys or your team, find out more information. What's the best starting point for that?
Steve at gurus.direct, Peter at gurus.direct, or Mandy at gurus.direct.
Excellent. And the website, the main URL there? Because there's that many different domains now.
Is rpagurus.direct. What's up there right now is a version of the platform that's going to be superseded later this summer with a much more functional and feature-rich version of the platform.
Well, I love what you guys are doing there and helping businesses find those blend of skills and expertise across multiple tool sets, relevant industry knowledge and the right language skills and prior qualifications. But more than anything, I've just enjoyed you sitting here with me today, sharing your origin stories, those great tunes to boot. But I'd love to stay in touch with you, get you back on later in the year once the platform's out there with the new website, etc. See how that journey's going and how you're evolving and adapting. But more than anything, thank you for sharing it with me today.
Oh, thank you, Neil. You've been a charming host.
Been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Neil. Thanks for having us on, and we'd love to stay in touch.
I love how the team got together, their history, their origin stories, and their mission to maximise access to automation talent, all washed down with some great tunes. And also learning, of course, how they're connecting businesses with that on-demand automation experts who are offering services in RPA, IDP, and process mining. And all that washed down with some great tunes. But now I'm going to put the virtual microphone over to your direction and ask you, how are you only hiring the talent that you need when needed and staying lean and flexible as you grow through your digital transformational journey. I want to hear your stories and your experiences, so please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. You'll find over 1,680 episodes and interviews over my website, techblogwriter.co.uk, and you can connect with me on social, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, @Neil C. Hughes. Nice and easy. All I ask is you don't just hit the follow button or connect request. Send a quick message. Tell me you listen to the podcast or how you found me, and we'll have that conversation too. Speaking of which, I'll return again tomorrow with another guest and another conversation about how technology is transforming our life, work, industry, or indeed world, and we'll do it all again. So a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.